Hello, welcome to St. Aloysius' Church here in Garnet Hill in the centre of Glasgow. The church is just over my shoulder over there. We're in the sacristy again. We try to go into the church and there are actually people praying, which is good. But at some point I'll take you in and we can have a look at some of the aspects of the church, which are very beautiful. But today I'd like to just reflect a little bit on the Gospel of this Sunday, the fifth Sunday of Lent. It's one of a sequence of three Gospels which all relate together, the third Sunday, the fourth Sunday and the fifth Sunday. The third Sunday of Lent, the Gospel was from John's Gospel, John chapter 4, the Samaritan woman at the well. Last week's Gospel, the fourth, was the blind man, chapter 9 in John, the blind man being cured in the temple in Jerusalem. The third in this sequence, today's Gospel, is the Gospel from chapter 11, the Raising of Lazarus from the dead. What I'd like to do now is just to listen to Mary as she reads that rather long but very intricate Gospel.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John, chapter 11, verses 1 to 45. There was a man named Lazarus who lived in the village of Bethany with the two sisters, Mary and Martha, and he was ill. It was the same Mary, the sister of the sick man Lazarus, who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair. The sisters sent this message to Jesus: "Lord, the man you love is ill." On receiving the message, Jesus said, "The sickness will not end in death, but in God's glory, and through it the Son of God will be glorified." Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Yet when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed where he was for 2 more days before saying to the disciples, "Let us go to Judea." The disciples said, "Rabbi, it is not long since the Jews wanted to stone you. Are you going back again?" Jesus replied, "Are there not 12 hours in the day? A man can walk in the daytime without stumbling, because he is the light of this world to see by. But if he walks at night, he stumbles, because there is no light to guide him." He said that and then added, "Our friend Lazarus is resting. I'm going to wake him." The disciples said to him, "Lord, if he is able to rest, he is sure to get better." The phrase Jesus used referred to the death of Lazarus, but they thought by rest he meant sleep. So Jesus put it plainly: "Lazarus is dead, and for your sake I am glad. I was not there, but now you will believe. Let us go to him." Then Thomas, known as the twin, said to the other disciples, "Let us go too and die with him." On arriving, Jesus found that Lazarus had been in the tomb for 4 days already. Bethany is only about 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to sympathize with them over their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus had come, she went to meet him. Mary remained sitting in the house. Martha said to Jesus, "If you had been here, my brother would not have died. And I know that even now, whatever you ask of God, he will grant you." "Your brother," said Jesus to her, "will rise again." Martha said, "I know he will rise at the resurrection on the last day." Jesus said, "I am the resurrection and the life. If anyone believes in me, even though he dies, he will live. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" "Yes, Lord," she said, "I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who was to come into this world." When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary, saying in a low voice, "The Master is here and wants to see you." Hearing this, Mary got up quickly and went to him. Jesus had not yet come into the village. He was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who were in the house sympathizing with Mary saw her get up so quickly and go out, they followed her, thinking that she was going to the tomb to weep there. Mary went to Jesus, and as soon as she saw him, she threw herself at his feet, saying, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." At the sight of her tears and those of the Jews who followed her, Jesus said in great distress, with a sigh that came straight from the heart, "Where have you put him?" They said, "Lord, come and see." Jesus wept. And the Jews said, "See how much he loved him." But there were some who remarked, "He opened the eyes of the blind man. Could he not have prevented this man's death?" Still sighing, Jesus reached the tomb. It was a cave with a stone to close the opening. Jesus said, "Take the stone away." Martha said to him, "Lord, by now he will smell. This is the 4th day." Jesus replied, "Have I not told you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. Then Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you for hearing my prayer. I knew indeed that you always hear me, but I speak for the sake of all these who stand round me, so that they may believe it was you who sent me." When he had said this, he cried out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, here, come out." The dead man came out, his feet and hands bound with bands of stuff and a cloth round his face. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him, let him go free." Many of the Jews who'd come to visit Mary and had seen what he did believed in him. The Gospel of the Lord. Now.
So, for example, in those 3 little plays, the disciples act a little bit like a comic Greek chorus. They come on and they're not terribly sure what's been going on, and they express their lack of understanding. And John uses that as a way of trying to deepen the narrative, deepen the story. So in the Lazarus story, there at the beginning, Jesus talks to them when he hears about the death of Lazarus. And of course, once more, they chime in with a lack of knowledge or understanding. But Jesus once more uses it as a platform for a deeper teaching. All 3 stories are stories of faith. The first one, the Samaritan woman, is somebody who's coming to faith for the first time. She hears Jesus. She's at first rather distrustful of him. She pushes him to one side, but step by step, he engages her to the point where he'll face her straight and force her to think about her faith and her life journey. The blind man is something slightly different. It's somebody who seems to have faith. That doesn't seem to be an issue, but it's a deepening of a faith through adversity of his illness, and then adversity with the opposition that's coming from the elders of the people in the temple. The ultimate test of faith, though, is the Lazarus story. But as you'll have noticed, Lazarus really is only a character that enters right at the end. This is the story of the faith of Martha and Mary, friends of Jesus and believers. And you can tell that they are believers because of the stage that they're already at in their faith and their knowledge. Martha comes to Jesus. She already has a deep knowledge of who he is. But you can see that her faith is not yet complete. Her first words to Jesus are a challenge. If you had been here, my brother would not have died. It's a semi-accusation against him. She knows his power. But what happens is that Jesus really is now testing the ultimate faith of a human being. Unlike the Samaritan woman, unlike the blind man, what Martha and Mary are facing is the tomb. And in one way, that is the ultimate test of faith. For even people of faith, people like myself, professional in religion and that type of thing, when we're facing death, and the prospect of death, and death of myself or death of those that I love, it is a challenge to faith like no other. We can live our life in great faithfulness, but when we face the grave, when we face darkness, everything is stripped away from us. Nothing in this life can we hold on to. All of the things that in some ways give a structure to our life and our religion, our liturgy, whether we have all of the healthcare needs that we have, whether it's our hand sanitizers, our toilet rolls, whether it's the best surgeon in the world, whether it's the best hospital in the world, ultimately all of those things will be stripped away. What Martha and Mary are doing is that they are wanting to continue the life as they know it. So Lazarus eventually emerges from the grave, wrapped in all of the bindings of death. And that is really symbolic for John, because Lazarus is not being resurrected. Lazarus is just coming back to this life. Ultimately, he will still die. That's why he's wearing the binding clothes. At some point, he will die. What Jesus is trying to say to Martha and Mary is that what they are hoping for, what they are asking for, is something quite limited. It's not life. It's not just the living and walking around on this earth. What Jesus is offering is something far more profound. And it's that offer, the challenge of death, which is the ultimate test of faith. For Martha and Mary, baffled by the bringing back to life of Lazarus, it's a teaching that Jesus is trying to make to his disciples and to those around him, that ultimately they will not know what true life is until the resurrection of Jesus, which says that death has been broken, not just baffled for a few moments, but broken. Death has broken. Life has emerged into our world. Lazarus sets us up for that story, which is to become Holy Week, the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus.